Everyone, welcome back to Risk Takers and Trailblazers Women in Insurance podcast. Our podcast is all about learning from transformative women who have made amazing business and career moves throughout their lives, but more importantly, providing support to others that are navigating their own journey coming up. And I think it's just such a great platform to share information, and it certainly helped, the four of us here so far in the last year. So I'm here with my favorite podcast squad, Helen, Tanya, Diane, and we're thrilled to have JFolk join us today. So Jan is the author of this book, Helen High Heels, an entrepreneur, a former owner of JFolk Associates and National Home Warranty that sold for a whopping $55 million, which I know Jan personally, and I did not know that until I read this book. And you're also a facilitator for the Smart Recovery Society of Alberta.
Right.
So we're going to be diving into this book, Jan, your incredible story, how you conquered your personal challenges and kind of what you learned along the way. This book fascinated me. I read it in pretty much a day and a half. And I just thought it was so real and raw, and we're happy to have you today. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be here, very much so. This is especially with the insurance background of everyone. And just that I was just saying before, I'm really impressed with how you're handling this podcast. It's very, very professional. And I've done a few of them, but I've watched you on social media and it's really good. So
thank you.
Thank you.
So maybe we'll get into Jan. Like, I know it's a big background, and maybe just kind of give the audience an overview of, and you can jump right into your journey if you want, wherever you kind of want to start.
It's considering how old I am, there's a whole bunch of stuff. So if you really want to know, you got to read the book. But
I agree.
But I was your typical. I was born and raised in Saskatchewan, and that's a challenge in itself. And I had a very domineering, verbally abusive mother, which I say that because she set the tone for me for quite a few years, because it was always, "You're so stupid, you can't do this." They wouldn't let me go to college. They didn't have the money. So basically what I've done is I only have grade 12 education. And for years, when I did start in business, when the subject of education came up, I'd change the subject or I'd leave the group because I was so embarrassed. And then finally, it took me years, but I thought, you know what? I've done a hell of a job, and the education, it just didn't happen, but it didn't stop me. However, on that note, I still believe, even in this day, that if one can have the money and everything else to do it, the degree or the certificate, whatever you get, you kind of need it. I put a fair amount of, I want to say, luck or good fortune that I was able to move through without that degree that is so important. So having said that, fast forward, I got to Edmonton as quickly as I could. I turned 18 and took off because, I was going to make millions. And did I have the burning desire to go into insurance? No, I did not. I really didn't know what I wanted to do, but you've read the book, so I had some pretty wild jobs, and selling shoes at the Army and Navy when it was still around. That was quite fun. I got myself into a lot of scrapes. I had a boyfriend who was with the Rebels, which is part of the Hells Angels. Thought I was so cool. That was pretty big time, and I did some of the jobs. I'm thinking, what the hell? And then I got into the insurance industry, and I'm not quite sure actually how I got to my first interview, which was with Royal Insurance. And it's funny enough, but my friend of 50, 60 years is Sharon Pugsley, which happens to be Jen's mother-in-law. And she was she was quite a bit older than me, and she kind of took me under her wing. So I started in that and then moved on. And then I was one of the unfortunates. I will tell you something, you guys, you women are very young. And in those days, and even now, I find it, or I hear it. So this is 40 years ago when I started. And the thing was, oh, women are accepted and women are this and respected. And that's all, I'm going to be very blunt, it's all bullshit behind doors. especially when you're young. And, here I am from Saskatchewan, like terrified in the big city and didn't have a clue. And I
Yeah.
had two employers swoop in. And the sexual abuse, that's a buzzword sometimes, but the sexual harassment and abuse, I went through it for a long time because I thought I had to. And that
Mhm.
again went back to the, I'm not educated. I better just be glad I've got this job, whatever. And
Mhm.
it's real. It's
Yeah.
very real. And you're very, very scared. And I look back on it, but I can't say, oh, why the hell didn't I do something? I didn't do anything because I knew I would be let go or be humiliated or whatever. Again, it's a lot of things that have happened to me over the years. A lot of things you cringe and think, are you serious? But I've had an amazing, amazing, amazing life. So it can be done, and
Yeah.
and I mean, I was as high as I could get in business and success, and then boom, I was right down scraping the ground.
Yeah, it's
So,
interesting. Something you said in there, and I think like resonates with me in the sense of even if, even if some things didn't quite take place in the same way, is that, when you're young and you're trying to survive at the same time
mhm,
as build, you do tell yourself these things like, oh, I should be grateful. I think we tell ourselves these things now, right? We should be grateful. We're always in this kind of like conflict of maybe wanting more or knowing something's not right. But yeah, then you tell yourself, well, you're lucky to have a job. You're lucky to make money, right? And how, like, that's like a really warped.
yeah, I don't like the word should. I took it out of my vocabulary a while ago because, and that's just me personally, but there is no, oh, I'm lucky to have this, or oh, I've got this job. Like I was around, it was a male dominated operation, and I worked for men, I mean, for the first 10 years, and then in 1985 opened up JFolk and Associates. Scared shitless, no idea, but again, what did help me wasn't the education, but what I opened up a brokerage, which you all know, and I thought, what the hell am I going to do? Who's going to give me a contract? And in those days, it's a
Mm.
long time ago, right? I went to every single market that we had or that I knew of. And what was interesting is, let's say I went to 10, 9 out of 10 said, yep, what do you need? And they didn't say it because, I was like, oh my God. But every single one of them, and this is something to remember, is said, we've worked with you, we've watched you, we've listened, you can be trusted, and you keep your word. And that no
Mhm.
matter what business you're in or no matter what you do, if you believe in something or you've said, I got this or I'm going to do it with your staff, with your coworkers, with your family, you do it. Because if you don't, you've let yourself down, first of all. And then nobody believe, it's kind of like, well, you can't trust her, you don't believe in her. So I was very fortunate that way, but it was still, oh my God, when we opened the doors, I had one little tiny filing cabinet and there was one file in it and it was my sister's. And you'd open the door and it would go clang, clang, clang thing because there's only one file in there. But we thought, okay, that's good. And worked. I mean, 8 in the morning, 7 in the morning till 10 at night. Um, but I loved it. And I grew to love insurance for the sense that every single day something was new. It didn't matter what. And I
Yeah.
know you women know that. And because people will still say, oh, insurance, oh my God, how boring is that? Well, it's not boring. Especially, the situations I had moving up until things kind of settled down because, there was a lot of people wanting me to fail. And that's,
Yeah. Let's talk about that. Like, so you were in your book, you talk about like the early days of J folk and how did you navigate, like I personally, I walked away from the book feeling the first thing I said to James, my husband, which Jan knows, is I said, the biggest takeaway for me is that Jan was it felt like you were very clear in what you wanted or you prioritized, and maybe wanted is not the right word, but you prioritized um, being clear in maybe your next move or what you wanted. And so, how did you even begin in the early days to did it keep pushing forward with
well,
JFO?
it's all about survival. And did I really know what I wanted? Did I think I was going to build this brokerage and it was going to sell? Did I think that? Not for a moment. I just thought, you know what? You have now you've talked all along about opening. You can do this. You can open your own brokerage. So now you do it. So every single morning I went in and I said, okay, if we can just get one thing done today and we can just, make it through the day. It's kind of like the recovery I'm in from alcohol is you get through that day and you say, hey, this is good. And then it just falls into place. But it was a matter of survival, but it was always also a matter of there wasn't an option that I wasn't going to succeed. I didn't know if I was going to be sitting with my little filing cabinet with 5 files, but I was succeeding and I was going to meet the commitments that I made as we grew. And that brokerage and National Home Warranty would not have sold or been where we were without the incredible staff we had. By the time we sold with the 2 companies through Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and BC, there were 150 employees, and they called themselves lifers because they didn't leave. And it was the thing like I had a business partner who didn't really agree with this, but that was okay because he was in the background. But I just thought, you know what, I'm hiring or I'm going to look for people that are so far ahead of me as their goals or their ambitions, and they don't want to give up. And I will tell you honestly, because I don't want to sound like a star here, but when I first started hiring people, I don't know if you've ever heard the crab analogy of you put crabs in a pail. Nova Scotia, maybe you've heard this, and they're scrambling to get out, and they just about make it, and the big ones pull them back.
Mm.
That's what I was doing at first. They would have great ideas, but I'd say, "Oh yeah, but I better think about it, or we'll see." And then when finally, I don't know how it came to me, and I thought, "Okay, let them go." And it was very hands off. I was not hands on. They knew what they had to do from the filing clerk when we had files to the top brokers. Here's what our mission is. Here's what your position is. Go do it. And I don't want to, I don't have to hear back from you. If you have a problem or you run into something that you're in trouble, you come to me and we'll work it out together. And we'll do that twice. And the third time we won't do it because if it was something that they screwed up on. But I knew what was going on, but it was never like, there's no micromanaging. That's the word I'm trying. And I think there might be a bit of that these days. I don't know.
Jen, I agree with you on that. Like, I look at that in my own leadership. How much control, like, do I need to give up and give freedom to my team members to be empowered to make the decisions and to have the ideas I don't have and execute them without me kind of be like, I don't know. And what's the worst that can happen? And I try to encourage my team, let's try things, let's do things, and let's learn if it doesn't work. Let's learn and like come back. And that was really hard to give up that control, but
it is. It's fear. You're scared. You're scared it's not going to go. But you know what? Whatever I believe, and I'm really old for this, but everything has happened as it should. And considering my life, I gotta believe that. So, but you're right. It's fear. But once you say, okay, let's work together, and they work with you, it's sky's the limit. And I will tell you quickly, before I opened the brokerage, when the people that took over were who I was working for, and they wanted me out. And it's very detailed in the book, but I was the general manager, so I was really living the life, right? Beautiful office. I had it all. And so they one day made me pack up everything, clean out my office, walk with a box to the back to a storeroom, had no windows, no phones, nothing. And I sat there and I was supposed to work there, but I couldn't call clients. I couldn't do anything. They did it just to push me out. And I did that for about a month or more. And I had to walk past all the staff, that had reported to me and took away my parking stall. It was just like children.
it's humiliating.
I'll never forget that. The humiliation was like, oh my God. But I thought, you know what? I'm not giving up. And I kept coming in until one day I thought, I'm gonna have you guys shut down. And they did. I got my license. We opened within about, I don't know, 7-8 months, they were shutting the doors.
Wow.
So the thing was you don't ever, you never, ever give up. And sometimes you just want to lie down and cry, which I did quite a few bit of times. But if you believe in it, and I don't care if it's riding a horse or if it's having $1 million brokerage, if you believe in it and you can see, then you keep going and you do not let any naysayers get in your head. oh, you can't do that. Oh, I don't know.
Can I go back to something that you just mentioned on, and then I want to definitely go back to what you're doing right now for
Okay.
women, because that's empowering on a personal level, right? And that's really
Right.
what we talk about in our podcast. It's not all just about business. It's about
Right.
all of those other things that we're doing to empower women, help women, because as much as we are probably a larger percentage of the population, we still very much are not treated nor looked upon as we are. So what I wanted to just quickly go back to is, what would you give as some advice to those that are listening, even ourselves as we're listening to you in bated breath, because I've read the book as well, but other people that are listening, but what would be some advice to those that are up and coming, and it may not be in insurance, but up and coming overall, and just say, how do you get that fear out of your head? What would be some of those tips that you could say, do this every day, or think of other ways to get around it?
I think what I would say with young women, or even young men, but mostly women, because they're nervous, is that you, first of all, you talk to yourself. Sounds strange, but that's what I mean. I would wake up every morning and say, okay, now you've got this. This is what you're going to do. And I would talk to myself a lot. And another thing is, if you have a good support group, and that's overused, that word, but it's true.
Yep.
You only need one or two people that believe in you and that you can bounce things off. Because sometimes I used to go to do something and think, oh my God, this is ridiculous. You bounce it off and someone might say, oh, I don't think so. But if you believe in it and you've thought it out and you've looked at what can and cannot happen, don't ever give up on it. Or else, you know what? You're all successful young women. And most people, if they've got to the point of, what advice or what should I do? The fact that you get up every morning, put on whatever you're wearing, get out there and show up, as they say, is 90% of it. I tell you, even if you don't actually write a book, because it's expensive to get it published and the rest of it, but even if you don't, and I'll use whatever words you want to use, journaling or just notes. I used to keep notes all the time of what my day was like. Is put that down just like at night, and I would think, okay, we'll go through what happened and what could I have done better, or oh God, did I screw up here? But share it with yourself, because when you see it written down or on a I'm old school, I still have the little notebooks, or you put it on the computer or something, it comes alive.
Yeah.
But the big thing, and there's nothing magical about it. Oh, well, you've got to get a life coach. You've got to do this. If you're determined, you've got all the skills of a life coach already.
I've actually told my mom a few times, I'm like, we should write a book. We should talk about, working together, starting the brokerage, just all the
and Diane, if you're thinking about it, do it.
Yeah.
Like it's the best therapy. Like I spent hundreds and hundreds, thousands on therapists, and I did this, and I was like, there's nothing in the world, if they read it, doesn't know about me, because I'd spilled my guts. And there's some very embarrassing things in there, and I have to live with that. And I've had one person who called me over to his house one night, and he said, I want to go over your book. And I'm like, oh, okay. And he was a male, and he said, I got to tell you, this is not going to go anywhere. It's very poorly written. The grammar's bad. And I said, oh, okay. And he goes, I hope you didn't pay a lot of money for this, because it's not going to go anywhere. And I said, you know what? Thank you for your constructive criticism, if you want to call it that. But I didn't write that for the world. I wrote it for me. And I said, I published it. And if I sell a copy, great. If I don't, that's fine too. And when I, on social media and that, I'll say, this is what's in my book and stuff. It's not like, go and buy my book. It's even if you know somebody that has it, because it really is kind of like, oh. And every time you put your thoughts down and you look at it and you think, I'm pretty good, or, oh, what a wreck I was here. But the two even each other out. You guys wouldn't be here if you didn't have the guts it takes to go out to the world. And you are going out to the world, because it's a podcast. It's not just you're writing a book, and it made me brave. But in reality,
that's so interesting that you say that, because so a couple of things in there is that there's so much noise, and there's so much, so I don't know which came first, because I can resonate with that too. It's like, at what point, can you take this advice and then stock it, like you said, evaluate it, stock it somewhere, but at the same time, not lose your own opinion. You know what I mean?
Don't ever lose what made you decide to go do what you want to do. Don't ever lose that.
It's that
Ever.
piece. Yeah.
So I've known you for probably, I think 20 years, probably over 20 years now. And you're actually a very, from what I know, I mean, I know I was like kind of the kid in the situation, but you're a very private person, like in most senses. Like I just thought like you weren't prayed, you didn't parade around. Like I just thought, and for other women, it's a very impressive number. It is.
It
right?
was a good deal.
Yeah.
And you know, when we were approached, it was Aviva who bought us.
Yeah.
And I was good friends with the CEO of Aviva, and he called me and said, "Hey, I want to buy the warranty company." And I said, "Hey, that's nice, but you're taking the brokerages too." "Oh, well, we don't want to." I said, "Then we're not selling." And I was biting my tongue thinking, please don't walk away, because I knew it might be a good deal. But I hung in there. It took them 2 years to do their due diligence. And it was good to watch and see the reports. And I thought, we really knew what we were doing, or the people that were doing the job knew what they were doing. Yes, we oversaw a lot of it, but it was the people. And I will say that until, I hear the opposite. They'll say, well, come on, yeah, they were employees. No, they weren't. They were a big part of my life. And I don't know about my partner, because he was kind of an introvert, but it was on a personal note too, as you're saying, Helen. It was when I walked out of the office on July 8th, 2008 was my last night there, and I was all alone. And we had a massive space on the 30th floor of the Western Bank building. And I was, I walked around just like you see on a movie. And I was, I had tears and I was crying, and I thought, oh my God, this uneducated, terrified, scared person. Look what you did.
Mhm.
And but I didn't ever want to say it like Jen says, I'm private. I didn't even know I was private. I just thought, oh, I'm not very good at anything, so why would I talk about it? For years.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. And then talk about how, so after the sale and stuff, how, because Diane, you talk a lot about this too, in terms of like kind of how hard that was, because you attach so much of your identity to the brokerage and the business. So maybe talk about, I mean, I know Diane, you shared what that was like, crying every day. Like, how do you like move into something else? Like,
I remember when you were just saying that you walked around your office, I was picturing myself doing the same thing on our last day. And it's like a family member.
Yeah, I could still see it. I knew what I was wearing. I still know what I was wearing. That's 16, 17 years ago.
Yeah.
And there was no one there but me. So you get it.
Yeah.
What happened with me is the next morning I woke up and I thought, wait a minute. Like, what do you do now? But I was a bit different, because sold in July, and in September I moved lock, stock, and barrel to California. So everything was exciting and fun, and I was having a great time. So that part made it easy, but I still had a lot of days when I did cry. And you know what I missed? I missed the camaraderie. I missed the partnership. I missed the group. I missed the fact that nobody loves anything better than a good sale or a good success story. And I got this client, or I did this. I was very, very much involved in charities in Edmonton, and still am, but I missed that helping and because I mean, everyone knew I was a sucker. So you just had to call and say, hey, guess what, Jan, this is happening. And I'd say, oh, I don't know. And then I'd end up donating. But I had 4 that I was really dedicated to. So I missed those. So you miss a lot, but you also then sit back and think, oh God, geez, this was great. But moving, I think about a state in Edmonton. I'm not, it might be a bit different, but the first I moved in 2008. So the first 5-6 years when we had the jet, we had, I lived on a yacht. I mean, I was just, I was a Saskatchewan girl, and I'm not bragging. Okay. I'm just saying this is what I did. And, started businesses, lost, they shut down. I lost a bunch of money, believe me, because I was just like, I was an absentee owner, and that's another thing you can never, ever be. And I knew that. So I had a bar, which I always wanted, and then I opened the Dogtopia daycare, and I let someone else manage it. Not smart. I will tell you one thing, and I don't know, Diane, if it hit you. I wondered, like, one day I woke up and I thought, well, I don't have a purpose anymore. Like, what am I doing?
Mine was my identity. I felt like my identity was stripped from me.
Yeah. It's just all of a sudden, who are you?
Yeah.
And so I woke up with that feeling. And then I was also, by that time, I decided that, Pinot Grigio was my favorite consumption of the day. So you think, oh, well, what the hell, but I was just drinking and I was alienating myself, and I was getting really quiet, which for me is unusual. But it really stemmed back to that, is that the two things, and I will say it now before we even talk about it, with addiction or alcoholism or drugs or whatever might be the case, loneliness and boredom are the two things that'll take you right down a hole faster than anything.
Interesting.
And I created a lot of that loneliness because I just pushed everybody away. I had lots of friends and, friends and acquaintances in California, and I just kept pushing them away. My family, I said, they were all worried about me. But again, you're right, Diane. It was your identity is gone in your mind, and your purpose. Because you really were doing something when you had your company. So.
And in your book, you talk. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you is like, so do you think the insurance industry, because in your book you talk about like, your addictions didn't really take hold until way after, right? But it's no secret that the insurance industry is a heavy alcohol dominated, industry, late nights. Like, do you think, like, what's your opinion on that? Like, I think, it's still the same, some events have changed, but it's still the same.
I think again, it's still heavy male. There's a lot of dynamite women, this party included, but it's still heavy male. But the stigma of, well, we're going to go tonight, we're going to have a conference, we're going to party. And I was an alcohol, a drinking bully. If I was drinking, well, why aren't you drinking? Come on, have a drink, blah, blah, blah. And you're ostracized if you say, no, I don't feel like a drink. Well, why aren't you drinking? And it's getting better. And the nice thing to see is that there's a lot of places that are really bringing in the non-alcoholic drinks, which are actually not bad. But it's still there. And my opinion on it, like with any other corporation or organization, I think it's detrimental. Because I know when I went to the conferences, and I never missed one, and partied till all hours, and then you might as well forget about the next day because you're all hungover or you're not paying attention. But that's part of the club. You better be, and I used to love to brag, oh my God, I was so blah, blah, blah. And, thinking you're the belle of the ball, but you're really just an asshole a lot of times. So I think it's a detriment, but I think it's important that you still have the get-togethers. But maybe like some places are doing a little bit more of, instead of just a place, okay, we're all going to drink and there's going to be music. Like they're doing like Peace Hills was great. They had like, not game sounds really juvenile, but they had things to do like contests or something to do instead of just sit and drink. Because if you're sitting, I mean, I don't care who you are, you're going to drink.
The interactive pieces, right? That's what they've done.
I'm looking for. Yeah, something more interactive.
And you're right. It has evolved a little bit. In some of the, we all go to convention, and some of the carriers do it well, right? Where it's not just about all standing around or sitting around and talking over your scotch or your whiskey or whatever and making the deal. That's the one thing I remember specifically, and I still hear it sometimes. And two things that make me go, oh my God, is that all deals are made over a bar table, and you're like, okay, they are. However, what are we saying? And all deals are made on the golf course. As a
that's
non-golfer,
my favorite.
right? As a non-golfer, I'm like, really? So now you're ostracizing me because I can't golf?
Well, I was a big golfer, Helen. I mean, I golfed, and trust me, there's no deals made on the golf course. We golfed, we drank, we partied, and then you'd go back to them later and see if you could get the business. So, it was just an excuse.
I remember being 18 years old at my first broker convention, and someone telling me from a carrier, oh, honey, you're going to have to learn how to drink better if you want to be in this industry. And I was like, okay.
And then no kidding.
And and I was part of the PYIB, and I mean, they do amazing things, but it's like, I always felt like that one that was like, I gotta tap out. I'm done. Like, I can't do this for 4 days straight. And they're a lot to take in.
They are, and I think overall, just society is slowly getting there with addiction and with mental health slowly. But I believe that, like you said, some carriers are really good about it. I think that's amazing, because if you can provide something that's good for somebody wants to get smashed, all right, but what about if somebody doesn't want to drink or whatever? And if you got something for both of it, it'll even itself out. So I don't, I just think the heavy duty ones, and I know which ones they are, they're scary. I don't even know if I could keep up anymore. And I could keep up before, let me tell you. I was like, that was claim to fame.
I can barely, I don't anymore as much as, like, not the late nights. Cause you're just wrecked. And like you said, you've got other priorities and other things going on, and I'm just not as sharp the next day. But yeah, I do think the industry needs to change it up a bit, especially the conventions. They are some of them are better than others, but bring in interactive, activities or things that are for mental health and health in general. Go for hikes, whitewater rafting, who knows?
Let's spice it up a little bit. Like, I mean, you need the talk about the speakers and all the rest of it, or we're out of time. But spice your conference up. Like, have somebody come in there and say, you know what, hey, I got a story to tell, or this is what I did. So it's just a suggestion, but I think it might start something.
Yeah, might spice them up a bit.
I think, yeah.
We were right off topic, didn't we?
No, this is good. This is good. So I think, I mean, we did cover a lot of, in the book. I definitely, we'll get to the encouraging to read the book, but basically, I do think that you did cover some things, like leave people with certain things, but is there anything else, you would leave the audience with, if they're in a high pressure, growing their career, growing their business, anything else you want to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I think what I would say, because I didn't do this, but I think if you, like you say, high pressure, and it doesn't matter what you're in, but the pressure is real, is be nice to yourself, be kind to yourself, take some time to pull back and look after yourself, because that's where all the mental health and the alcohol and the rest of it can jump in and grab you. Have your dream, what you have to do, but be kind to yourself and take some time to not be, I gotta go, and that's what I was like. I mean, 10, 12 hours a day is take some time to just be yourself and spend it with whoever, or even by yourself. And then you're fresher and you're brighter, and away you go. And
Awesome.
That's pretty basic, but that's what I think I missed when I was in business.
That's what I'm trying to learn now. So we're gonna thank you, Jan, for joining us. We are going to link this book. We are also going to link, I don't know if we can, Jan, link your Tuesday nights.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
For smart recovery. And yeah, definitely thank you for coming and sharing.
Oh, thank you. It's great to meet all of you.
I'd love to learn more about the smart recovery program. So,
well, you reach out anytime,
and we'll link that for sure.
And good luck with you. You guys are on a really good path, so don't look back. Okay.
Thank you for watching.
Thanks very much. It was fun. Okay. Bye-bye.